All right, thanks very much, Kev. Next up, we've got Arantxa Zapico from the cryptography team. And I know she is very excited to have Dev Connect in Buenos Aires in Argentina. I don't need to share. Okay. Welcome. Arantxa is going to be talking about Soundness.
Did you say I'm from Buenos Aires?
No, I said Argentina.
Hello. Well, I'm very excited to be today here for two reasons. First of all, I may be late on the week, but I want to give you a warm welcome to Argentina, to my country. I hope you are enjoying the people, the culture, and the food, of course. And second, as a Snark person, I am beyond excited to see how and where you guys have taken Snarks. I started working on this like 7 years ago. I met Snark 7 years ago. And in no case I would have ever imagined what is happening with Snarks today. So thanks a lot. You really made this like the most exciting field of research. So in this talk, we will be talking about the soundness of Snarks. And we will use that as a path to speak about the security of Snarks. So the idea is that in this talk, we can discuss a bit how we define, measure, prove, and improve security of the zkEVMs. So let's start with how we define security. So a snark is like a proof system. What in cryptography we call proof system, and the zkEVMs are indeed proof systems. So in a proof system, we have two parties, a prover and a verifier, and they will interact for some time, and end this interaction with the prover sending some piece of information that we call the seal or the proof. The verifier will check this proof with some rules that we set in unbounds, and if this piece of information passes all the verifications, the verifier can be convinced that the prover was honest. The prover was honest by proving that some statement is true. So for a proof system like this, we require two security properties. The first one is completeness. If we design a proof system that both the prover and the verifier follow with a statement that is true, the verifier will accept. And the second one, and the most important, I mean, not the most important one, but the one we will talk about today is soundness. So if the prover doesn't have a statement that is true, it should not be able to convince the verifier, except with a small probability. So to prove huge things as the ones we are proving with very small proofs and fast time, we have to give up something, and that is a small probability that the prover may cheat. So this epsilon, this probability, is called the soundness error. You may also have heard of knowledge soundness error, which is actually what we are checking. And it's the chance that the prover will convince the verifier of a false statement. What is more, if we speak about MP relations, the prover doesn't have a witness for the instance, for the relation, but it is able to convince the verifier. Knowledge soundness is when we want to make sure the prover, there is not only a witness, but the prover knows this witness. So for zkEVMs, what we are proving is execution of Ethereum blocks, right? So our witness is the block. And thus, the soundness error is the chance that the prover can convince the verifier or the entire network of the correct execution of a block that was never executed. So the soundness error here is very important. We have to make it as small as possible because the consequences of having a cheating prover are huge, right? Like we can actually make billions out of nothing if we are able to break the proof system. So how do we measure this epsilon? How does it come from? Where does it come from? So I think of zkEVMs in my cryptography mind are things like this. The rectangles on your left are executions of snark provers that prove error traces. And then we have some other provers that aggregate them and probably just grab to have a small proof. But for this talk, I will talk only about one of these rectangles. So one proof system that proves the execution of an error trace. And I will use, as an example for our proof system, an error trace that is proved using batch fry and deep alley. If you don't know what is that, don't worry, you will still be able to follow the talk. So our prover wants to convince the verifier of the execution of a block, of actually the satisfiability of an earth trace. And for that, they will interact for many rounds. Each of these rounds, some of them have more rounds inside, but we can divide the proof system in 5 parts for this. If you are familiar with Fry, for batch Fry, we have the Fry batching, the commitment phase, and the query phase. And then for the aggregation of the constraints, we can also use Deep Alley. The knowledge soundness of each of these rounds is a probability that a prover that doesn't have a valid witness convinces the verifier. And for the entire system, we take the soundness error to be the biggest of these ones. Why? Because if I get lucky in one of the rounds, and my piece of information that was not a valid witness becomes a witness that satisfies the checks of the verifier, then I can just follow an honest prover instructions and cheat. So it doesn't matter if some of these epsilons are super small. If one of them is big, then the soundness error of my system is big, and my system is insecure. So for instance, an example. If we have a soundness error of 2 to the minus 80, meaning a prover gets lucky with a probability 1 over 2 to the 80, that means that the adversary, a cheating prover, will need 2 to the 80 operations in order to break my system. You can think of these operations for today as like just hashes, right? So it needs to perform 2 to the 80 hashes to make sure it will break my system. And we say that such a system has 80 bits of security, right? Now, what happens if I have a system with 80 bits of security? Let's say that I cannot, performing 2 to the 80 hashes, according to my sources, takes around a month. But what happens if I can perform 2 to the 60 hashes? Then I still can get lucky, and my chances are 1 over 2 to the 20. And this is a soundness error that we do not accept at all in cryptography. What is more, computing 2 to the 60 hashes, according to my sources, takes 40 minutes, for instance, in an ASIC miner, right? So we went for a month to 20 minutes. The prover is not sure that we'll win, but the chances are quite big. So 80 bits of security is not enough. What is enough for us? Well, 128 bits of security is the standard set by the National Institute of Standardization in the United States and the consensus in the cryptography community. So 128 bits of security is the security that Ethereum deserves. So if you love Ethereum, give Ethereum these 120 bits of security. So how do we prove? How can I prove that my proof system actually has 128 bits of security? So in my mind, to prove security, I follow the following steps. First of all, you have to know your adversary. What are the resources, the time, and the incentives it has? Right? We don't design all systems for any adversaries. I hope you don't use the same password for Spotify or for your password manager, right? But in this case, we have one good thing, which is we don't have that much time. The adversary doesn't have that much time to attack our system, but the incentives are huge. And this is a problem or something to take into account for the entire blockchain, right? Like the incentives to make money without much effort are huge. And if your incentives are billions of dollars, the resources are also huge because you can buy a lot of resources. It's an investment that will pay off, right? Also, in terms of resources, we can think whether we want an adversary, we want to consider an adversary that is post-quantum, has quantum computers or not. We are aiming for adversaries that have a lot of very powerful quantum computers. Step 2, analyze your building blocks. Analyze and attack the security of your building blocks. I hope you're aware we have in the Ethereum Foundation a Poseidon initiative. So we are putting a lot of resources, a lot of effort, led by Dmitry Kovratovic, on asking people to attack and to study the security of Poseidon, which is the hash function we hope to use. In terms of, for instance, read Solomon code, we are also pushing, led by Giacomo Fenzi and Dan Bonnet, and coordinated by Justin, an initiative on proving conjectures or disproving conjectures that may be used to analyze read Solomon codes. And I put polynomials here. We already know polynomials enough, but they are also a main building block of these systems, and yeah, the nicest of the building blocks of these systems. And once you have your adversary, you know the security of your building blocks, you have to choose what you are going to do. So knowing your adversary, you can choose what kind of security you want to give. And if you have been in EthProofs calls, if you have been in Twitter or maybe ePrint these days, all these words, all these phrases may ring a bell for you. So what is happening here? I'm not getting into the details. I'm not the person to get into the details. But in this fight, I would like to highlight two kinds of battles that we can choose. We can choose to have probable security or conjecture security. Probable means that we can say what the adversary, which kind of effort or which amount of effort the adversary has to do to break our system. Conjecture is the same, but we do that based on a conjecture. What is a conjecture? Whoa. A conjecture is something that we believe, we hope, one day may be proven to be a theorem. But it's something that we are not sure about, right? So why would we use a conjecture? Well, this is a very simplified graph of proof of work against security for probable or conjecture security. What does it mean? Again, in order to prove an error trace with batch fry and deep alley, if we want to analyze the security of our system with conjectures, to achieve 50 bits of security, we need 55 queries. 55 queries is proof of work, it's proof size, and it's verifier work. I just put it as proof of work to simplify stuff. But if I want to do it with probable security, we'll need around 105 queries. So this is the reason why people want to use conjectures. We can get more efficient systems with the same security, but conjecture, same amount of bits of security. Why wouldn't we use conjectures? Well, there are a couple of reasons that have came to the light for all of this happened in the last 2 weeks. We had some conjectures we thought they were true, and then they were proven untrue. We have new conjectures that we, again, hope that they are true. And while we still are putting a lot of resources and energy on conjectures, from now on in the EF, we will only consider probable security. So we'll ask teams to report, and we'll report only probable security. If nice conjectures happen to be true, that will be amazing. We will report that as probable security. In the meantime, we don't talk anymore about conjectures. So what is happening nowadays, and you have heard that from the teams in the panel and in previous talks, is that most of the teams have been in this race of speed that we have set from the Ethereum Foundation. They have been working a lot on the efficiency of their systems, and not that much in the security. So some teams have, let's say, between 100, 128 bits of conjecture security. But for probable security, the numbers are way lower. I know Succinct achieved 100 bits of probable recently, but most of the teams are even between 40 and 80 bits of probable security. So how can we prove this? So in this section, I will present what is, let's say, our discussion inside the crypto team, inside the Ethereum Foundation with the rest of the zkEVM teams, and a bit of feedback from some zkEVM teams. So let's see how round-by-round security or soundness works in different settings. So the soundness and thus the security of a system is, let's say, heavily relies on two things. First, the size of the field we are using for our proof system, and the size of the extension field we are using, because there is from where we sample the elements. And the second one is the number of fry queries. Again, if you don't know much about what the query phase in fry is, just there are two things that lead our security. So for this graph, I use Goldilocks. It's a field of 64 bits. And therefore, the second extension, which is the first one I will talk about, has 128 bits. So what happens if I do 128 queries using Goldilocks to try to prove the R trace using batch fry and deep alley? Well, it happens something like this. If you see, for instance, the alley phase, the alley round, it's around maybe 110, 115 bits of security. That's cool. Again, this is only probe. We don't talk about conjecture security ever anymore. But in the fry query, because I'm doing only 128 queries, we are at 58 bits of security. Then that is the security of our system, right? Doesn't matter how high the other bars are. The security of our system, in this case, is 58 bits. So we are bad at queries. Let's double the queries that we do. And now, queries-wise, we are OK. But all the other phases depend on the size of the field. I'm using a field of 128 bits. Achieving 128 bits of security with a 128 bits field can only be done in very, very trivial instances. So now we are below with the fry button, and we have only 78 bits of security. So let's now double the size. Let's use one more extension, Goldilocks 3. It will be in orange. That has 192 bits. What happens if I do 128 queries? Everything seems very nice, but again, queries here are the bottleneck. If I don't increase the amount of queries, the security of my system is as 58 bits. What happens if we do Goldilocks, third extension, with 256 queries? Well, we are getting there. We have 116 bits of security. And now, what happened with the 12 bits that we are missing? We could do more queries. But as I said before, queries comes with prover work, proof size, which is right now the bottleneck to achieve 128 bits of security, and then verifier work. So there is a technique that we can use. It's allowed to use. It's not cheating. It's just being smart, which is using grinding. Grinding can buy us some bits of security. For instance, can perfectly buy us 16 bits of probable security. And then we can achieve the 128 bits of probable security. What is the bottleneck here? Why can't we just apply grinding in the 58 bits of security case? Well, because this is how prover work grows with the bits of security we can gain from grinding, right? So there is a trade-off. And again, this is an analysis that we have done with the help of the teams, which is very easy for me to stay here on stage and say, hey, this is how you achieve 228 bits of security. But there is a huge amount of engineer work that the teams have to do behind that. And we want to help them. And we want to help Ethereum get the 128 bits of product security that deserves. So what is next for us from the EF and especially from the cryptography team? So as I said before, we will only measure probable security. As Kev mentioned before, we will ask teams to have 100 bits of probable security by Glamstogram, expected to happen end of the second quarter next year. And we will require 128 bits of security for H star, which is first quarter of 2027. Importantly, these deadlines are like very vague. We don't know when Glamstogram is going to be. We don't know when H star is going to be. So before the end of the year, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, let's see what's the feedback we receive. We will set hard deadlines for this and also deadlines for proof size. From the cryptography team, and especially actually done by Dimitri and especially George and Benedict, we have set a universal soundness calculator where we hope to measure the probable security of the different teams. So we can compare apples to apples, and everything is measured with the same system. What we need in order to integrate your zkEVMs into the soundness calculator is to please publish a quite detailed description of the proof system you are using, also the parameters, and some engineering improvement that you may have in your code. And again, we are aware because of the feedback we have received, especially this week, that you guys need incentives to do this. Like this race for speed has been a huge incentive for speed, and we need now to promote and to communicate better and to do even some marketing on the product security. So this is our new real-time proving, 128 bits of product security. Here is the QR code for the Soundness calculator. Please do check it. Give us your feedback. Again, we are only trying to coordinate this. It's easy to stand here and give vague details of some vague analysis, but you are the ones that are actually building this. So please give us your feedback. That's my Telegram, my email. You can reach out. I mean, we are quite easy to reach out to anyone in the zkEVM team, in the crypto team. You can also talk to Justin, to Alex. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Arantxa. So we have time for one question before lunch. So this is the most upvoted question. What do you think about provers that are post-quantum resistant while Ethereum is still using elliptic curve cryptography? What about the trend that NIST is pushing forward, post-quantum while blockchain is a bit behind?
Well, so to be honest, there is no rush to have provers that are post-quantum right now. We are, from the EF, we are trying to move Ethereum to post-quantum as well. You can see the effort on, for instance, replacing BLS with hash-based signatures. That's also an effort that is led by Dimitri, by Benedict, by Thomas, and Justin. So Ethereum will move to post-quantum. I mean, you can decide whether or not to do pre-quantum, and then you will anyways have to do a big amount of engineering work to move to post-quantum and make it to Ethereum. On the other side, I know that some teams, for instance, are using a Groth16 wrapper on their proof to achieve a better proof size. If you ask me now, and I hope no one kills me for this, for me that's okay. As soon as it's something that then you can remove, I would rather go to 128 bits of security and do the wrapper to have a small proof. Again, this is something that I need feedback on. I don't think I have talked to any team that is doing a wrapper right now, this week. But if you see that this is the only way that you can achieve a small proof and still do the product security, okay, Alex says no, we don't want wrappers. Well, yeah, that part was a personal opinion. Don't kill the EF. For me, it's not that bad. I mean, for a couple of months, it should be okay. But yeah, no. We are not accepting any kind of wrapper. We go 100% post-quantum. I mean, but we are open for feedback. I am very open to receive feedback on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Arantxa.